Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Glenn McDonald again with another Mainline Strength and Conditioning podcast. Today I have John Welch, a friend of mine from Louisiana. John, let's hear about yourself.
Yeah, so born in Nebraska, raised in Destin, Florida, right on the beach. Normal student, A's, B's, and C's, I guess. G.I. Joe playing little kid, loved to play guns in the woods. Not a bad little place to grow up and be a kid. I mean, I was surfing when I could surf, and I was playing beach volleyball. And I played a lot of volleyball. That actually was where I thought my life was going to take me. But obviously it did not. But from Destin, Florida, and
How did you end up? So Nebraska to Florida, that's quite a big difference there.
Yeah, my dad was at SAC headquarters in Nebraska, back when it was Strategic Air Command in Nebraska. My dad was in the Air Force. My mom was in real estate. My dad was on his last hitch in the military. They gave him choice of duty. He said, "I want somewhere sunny. Nebraska's cold as hell, a lot of snow. Let's do the absolute opposite of that." Right. And they gave him Florida, and he was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And went to Florida, and that's actually where he retired, and my mom retired was in Florida, and it's where I spent almost 18 years.
What year was that? Did you go to Florida?
Did I go to Florida? Let's see. I'm 75, so I think we moved to Florida when I was like in second grade, third grade, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was young, man. I was just a little guy.
Yeah. So what got you? I mean, besides playing G.I. Joe in the woods, I think, well, back then, anyways, all the kids did that. I mean, I was a regular commando back then.
Oh yeah, man.
I knew everything.
Yeah, forget about it. I had every G.I. Joe humanly. Every single G.I. Joe made, to include the USS Flag, the 7.5-foot aircraft carrier. My mom and dad got that for me one Christmas. It was one of 3 presents I got that year. Big ass aircraft carrier set up in my living room. But no, I can't say that in my head I knew that I always wanted to be a soldier. I can't say that that's what I wanted to do. I always had this drive and this push to help people. I was a pool lifeguard, and then I went to a water park as a lifeguard, and then I graduated and went out to the beach and became a lifeguard. And we had spoke, you and I, a week or so ago, and I left out so many things in that whole story, that whole time in my life. My senior year, going into my senior year, I actually went to VOTEC and was given the green light by my dad. Still in school, still in high school, but I went to the local VOTEC there in Fort Walton Beach and went through NFPA 1001 and became a firefighter. I was a volunteer firefighter at 17 years old. I had to have my mom and dad sign all kinds of paperwork. So I would go to school during the day. I would get out, I'd come home, eat, I would work out, and we'll get into that workout, why I was working out all the time. And then I would go to VOTEC at night, and I would stay there until 9:30, 10 o'clock, learning to be a firefighter and get my first responder card. And then ultimately, at the end of it, get my EMTB card and have my basic EMT certification. So I always knew that I wanted to help people. I just didn't know in what context I wanted to do that, or how I wanted to do that. And to answer the question about the military, living on an Air Force base, being around all different types of military people, different branches, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, Eglin Air Force Base, Hurlburt Field, 6th RTB. You had all of these different areas and different branches that you would see. I mean, you'd see, pilots and so on and so forth, and you'd see, Army Rangers and Green Berets, and you'd see it all. So it was something that I was always around, but I didn't really know that was the road that I was going to take.
Right.
Yeah. So just being around it all the time, I think is kind of what drew me to it. And I had this drive inside my body, to which I still do to this day, to help people out.
Right. Yeah, I remember when I was growing up, I was Connecticut, and I really don't remember anybody even thinking about the military, but every day, I don't know, something about it. We're
Yeah.
just hooked on it. A few of us from the neighborhood, and go running around and with our little plastic guns and our camo and
Yeah.
charcoal on your face, and like, I don't know what the hell we were doing.
No, had no idea. And old ladies would come outside to water their plants, and you'd be hiding all up in their bushes, hiding from your friends and scare old people. And it was a blast. But as I kind of grew up, I have an older brother of 7. He's 7 years older than me, and my dad, like I said, he was in the military for close to 30 years. So my brother, after he graduated high school, he didn't have any interest in going to college, none whatsoever. My dad gave him the option: hey, go to college or go in the military, one of the two.
Right.
And my brother was done with school, and he got put in the military. He became a 13 Fox, forward observer. He was in Lawton, Oklahoma, and then over in Germany. Now, my brother Steve, the military wasn't for him. The military wasn't a career for him. He punched out, I think, after 4.5, maybe 5 years. He punched out, went to culinary school, became a chef, and
Nice.
I eat good because of it. So it wasn't his calling, but for me, it was a different story. It was mine.
Did you ever visit him up there in Fort Sill?
No, he came home. I remember him coming home. It wasn't after basic training or anything like that. It was like after he'd gone to duty, and he came home and he had bought a car, and it was a '77 Nova Super Sport, and it was bright orange, and it was quite possibly the coolest car I'd ever seen.
Right.
And it had a Hurst shifter in it, and he let me drive it. And I was just a little kid. But yeah, I never went up there, thank God. Now, let me fast forward my military career. I went up there a couple times and went through a couple courses on calling for fire and all that kind of stuff. And Lawton, Oklahoma, as I'm sure you know, is you're blowing big rocks to little rocks and little rocks to dust. There's just really nothing up there.
No, there's not, because like we went up there when I was working for the Bureau of Prisons before I retired. I went up there for it was a regional training for all the special operations teams and the disturbance control teams, and I went on this advanced party, and I was like, man, what the hell is this? I was like, I didn't know it was gonna be like this. And I was like, man, I'm regretting this. And I was like we're like in GP tents, and I was like, man, I'm like right back in the Marine Corps now.
Right.
It was rough living. We were only there for like a week and a half, but still, I mean, it was like, man, there's really not much there.
My brother said that it was like, I went in the summer. When I was up there, it was summer. It was hot as hell in Oklahoma.
Oh yeah.
He said in the winter, man, it gets super cold up there. And I know, coming from Nebraska, it was cold in Nebraska.
Right. So once you got done with school, you went, what track were you going on?
So
the military or what?
Yeah, so so in Florida, I played, like I mentioned, I played beach volleyball, and I got pretty good at it, and I was going to be a beach volleyball. I was going to go out to Huntington Beach, California, going to follow all of my idols out there and play beach volleyball. Got so good that I got sponsored, and I figured, yeah, this is where it's going to take me. And long story short, living on that Air Force base and kind of seeing things, seeing seeing my dad and what he did, and then seeing everything else around the military and how the lifestyle was, I knew that I wanted to do something. I knew I wanted to do something big. And we had these PJs that lived in the apartment complex that we lived in. And Ron, Marshall, and Dave, and I can't remember Dave's name for the life of me. But my dad introduces me to him and says, hey, listen, fellas, this is my son. He's thinking about going to the military, and he wants to do the PJ route. And I had an inside knowledge, I guess you could say, on what PJs did,
Right.
combat controllers. And these two guys just happened to live in the apartment complex, and they put me through the ringer. Before I went to basic training and before I went, into the military, I was in the best shape of my life because I was playing beach volleyball during the day. My day consisted of a very regimented, very, very regimented lifestyle. It was, I would wake up at 4, I would go running, no more than 2 miles. Right. From maybe 4:30, 5 o'clock until 6:30. I'd come back to the apartment. I would take a shower. I would get dressed. I would go to school. I would come home from school. I would go through another 2-hour workout. In the middle of all that, do homework. And then I would go to VOTEC at night to my NFPA course and come home at 9, do any leftover homework that I would have, and rinse, repeat the next day. So, and that was my life.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I got that from my father. But that was kind of the path, was to become a PJ. And the PJ motto is so that others may live. And I was like, that's what I want to do, man. I want to help people out. And their motto is so that others may live. So let's do this. So man, I went into it full bore. I mean, I was swimming 1,500 meters. I was doing 50-meter subsurface. I was doing everything, pull-ups, push-ups, to the point where I was like, this is the best shape that I've ever been in, that I'll ever be in my entire life. And quite honestly,
yeah.
But fast forward, I'm doing all this. I graduate NFPA, have my NFPA certification. I've gone through the first responder course. Now I was starting the EMTB course, but I knew that the military, was coming, and I had to go enlist. And I went to the Air Force recruiter to enlist. This is after the ASVAB and so on and so forth. I had a 122 GT score. I could do anything in the military that I wanted to do with a 122. And I get to the Air Force recruiter, and I tell him, like, this is what I want to do, man. And my dad standing beside me and said, yeah, he wants to contract a PJ contract. And if that's not available,
he went with you.
Oh yeah, my dad was sitting right next to him. Or he wants the combat controller. If you can't get into the PJ program, you can't go to the PJ pipeline, you got to, he wants to go to the combat controller. The pipeline for those two just split. I mean, it's Lackland Air Force Base, and then they split at some point, I guess. Air Force recruiter told my dad, now I don't know if it was true or not. I don't know. And I don't know if he had any more contracts. This was in the early 90s. You know what I mean? But he told me that, yeah, we can do this, but he's going to have to wait. He's going to have to wait like almost 9 months before the pipeline. But we can put him in the Air Force in this job, and then he can go. My dad was like, dude, come on. Like, I've been doing this longer than you've probably been. So just no. That was one of the lowest points that I can still remember to this day. It was probably one of the lowest points in my life, because I'd worked so hard. And like, I was with these guys, and what I felt was like I just disappointed Ron and Dave and my dad and everybody that I told, hey, John, let's go to the beach tonight. Let's go behind one of the hotels and pick up. I can't.
I got trained.
Yeah. I'm training to be a PJ.
Yeah. Right.
And all of those things just
gone.
And, yeah, like that quick. And I was crushed. I was absolutely crushed. So what does a kid do now? Like, I've got this training. Let me just go become a firefighter. And, not that there's anything wrong with being a firefighter. I mean, I think it's a great profession, and I think I would have excelled at it. Right. But you always know that there's something always in the back of your head that says, hey man, there's something.
When you talk to the recruiter, how long did it go between you or the Air Force recruiter and the Army recruiter?
Well, I would say 6 days, 7 days, a week, maybe. Okay. And it was crazy. I had a friend, Akron, Weatherford. We went to an air show on Eglin Air Force Base. We were meeting some friends out there. Big time air show. And we were walking around looking at all the cool airplanes and watching the Thunderbirds and this, that, and the other. And the demo guy comes over, the demonstration guy comes over, he's talking, he says, focus your attention out to this way, blah, blah, blah. And I look out there and I see these two Blackhawks come just out of nowhere, it seemed. And they, go into their hover and little explosions are going off. You're like, oh man, that's cool. And then you see these ropes come out of these helicopters and these cats fast roping out. And I'm like, what job in the Air Force is that? Like, hell, I'll do that. Let me do that. And then it comes off. These are members of 75th Ranger Regiment, and their airfield search and seizure, and so on and so forth. And I was watching it, and I was like, holy cow! Like that's what I want to do, man. I want that. Right. And I went home, and I knew about that much of the Army because of my brother. And to be quite honest, everything that my brother told me was horrible because it was Lawton, Oklahoma, nothing to do. It was just they live intense, and that's just what I was thinking. And I was like, you know what, man, let's do it. I went home and me and my dad had a conversation, and I think the conversation was kind of like you say something to your dog and your dog kind of just goes like, what? But I was my own man. My dad said, you're going to make decisions that are going to be good ones and bad ones, and you got to learn from them. So I think that me going in the military was a good decision, he was thinking, but the Army probably not so much, So went back to the recruiter, Staff Sergeant Anderson, told him what I wanted to do. And Staff Sergeant Anderson was like, we can get you an unassigned Ranger contract and have you at Montgomery MEPS in 7 days. I was like, where do I sign? And that was it. And
no chance of naval service and Navy or Marine Corps?
You know what? I didn't know anything about it. The only thing I knew about the Navy was, like I said, this was the early 90s. I knew Charlie Sheen in Navy SEALs. That's the only thing I knew about the Navy, quite honestly. Right. I knew Top Gun, naval aviators. The Marine Corps, I knew Heartbreak Ridge. That was it. Like, I legitimately didn't know anything other than Air Force and my brother, small stint in the Army, and then those Army Rangers taking that airfield. That's it.
Like when I still remember to this day that I don't know what grade it was, maybe 7th or 8th grade. I actually read a book one time in my life. I think I read an entire book. It was like I think it was called Diaries of Guadalcanal, and it was all about the Marine Corps. And I was like, oh, that's great. Just a wide-eyed kid, just like, oh, this sounds good. All these killing all Japanese and whatever the hell was in that book. I was like, since then, man, I was like turned on by going in the Marine Corps or something.
Yeah, I was like hyper focused though. My focus was solely on PJs. I was meeting PJs every day. I was hanging around with PJs. I was seeing the green feet. I was like, this is my life now. Like, I'm a teenage kid that's not even signed any dotted line yet, but this is my life. Like,
you're just sponging everything up. That's all you see. That's all you know. That's what you want.
I know these dudes. I get to go. I go work out, and then they take me and they order for me off of the menu. They order the food that they think I should be eating. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like an experiment. I felt like it was like that. I was kind of like an experiment. Like, these two PJs had me, and they were going to make me into the best recruit going into the pipeline as humanly possible.
Pretty awesome.
And that dream crashed and burned, and it was a hard pill to swallow. But the shape that I was in, the mentality and the discipline that I had when I went into the Army, it was pretty unbelievable.
Carried right over to. So how did the Army start off?
Yeah, so I get to 30th AG. That's there at Fort Benning, and it's a shock. You know what I mean? Like, you think of, well, for me anyway, the military. I didn't know that part of the military. I knew after basic training military. I knew my dad. I knew Ron and and Dave. I knew my brother. I didn't know the basic training part. Now I'd heard stories and this, that, and the other, but never really gave it any thought. And in the early 90s, my drill sergeants were from the, Panama, taking Panama, or they were from the
Desert Storm, probably.
Desert Storm, right? Panama, Desert Storm, and I had a guy, I want to say his drill sergeant Shavir. He was Bay of Pigs. You know what I mean? So there were combat veterans that were our drill sergeants, and they let us have it like super, just, I guess. So I say that to say that I was a kid from the beach going and getting screamed at and yelled at. I mean, I hadn't been screamed at and yelled at in God knows how long. I mean, I wasn't a bad kid. And it was culture shock. So I remember getting on the phone at once you get to your battalion, and I was on Sand Hill. No, I was at Harmony Church, and they let you use the phones like for 2 minutes, and they give you the script.
Yeah.
Hey, Mom, Dad, I'm fine. I'm blah blah blah, and I say it all as fast as humanly possible. Now, mind you, the drill sergeant are walking behind you, so making sure that that's all you say.
Oh, you say that.
In my like very, very calm and silent voice, I say to my mom, I think I made a mistake. And my mom echoes that to my dad, and my dad, it's almost like he materialized on that phone, and he said to me, boy, you better toughen up. And he hung up on me.
Yeah, you're in it now.
Yeah, he said, boy, you better toughen up. And he hung up. And I still had the phone to my ear, and I was like, at that second, I knew that. I think that second probably when I became a little bit of a man, because it was like, now you're in it, bud. Get ready.
Yeah.
And I hung up the phone, and the fun began. And now for me, it was almost short-lived, because in basic training, after they give you all your inoculations and they give you all your shots and whatnot, I was upstairs and I woke up at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had a fever of 103. And the drill sergeant on duty put me on a truck and drove me to the hospital at Fort Benning, and they admitted me into the hospital. I was in the hospital for like 4 days.
Damn.
Yeah, it was rough, and it was crazy because I'm in the hospital, I'm eating food, I'm sleeping when I want, and I'm the first day, 2 days, it was a rough going, man. I was not feeling well. And that third day, I start to feel better, and I know that I'm coming up, and I'm sitting there in the bed, and there's a knock on the door, and you have that little window that's about that tall, about that wide, and I look and I see a drill sergeant hat, and he's talking to somebody. I'm like, oh shit! Like, what do I do? And the door opens up, and it's Shavir, and he takes off his hat, and he comes in, and in Private Welch, how you doing? Blah blah blah. And I'm sitting up as straight as I can, and he sits down. He pulls a stool over, and he sits down, and he pats my leg, and he says, how you doing, young man? And I was like, for a second, for that time, he was a human. Like he cared about me to ask me how I was doing. And, I told him I'm fine. I'm sorry that I'm missing, everything and this, that, and the other. And as we go on in this today, there's people that like Ron and Dave, my dad. These are people that pushed me or started to form John Welch. And that day, Drill Sergeant Shavir, when he came in and he hits my leg. I mean, he's got a long tab, a short tab. He got a special forces tab. He's got a Ranger tab. He's got a scuba bubble. He's got a senior parachute, free fall. You name it. The dude had all the lettuce.
Right.
And he comes in and he hits my leg, and he says, "Listen, Private Welch, we can roll you back, and you can start a new class if you choose, or you can come back to your class here, but you're going to be behind." And I was like, negative, no drill sergeant. I want to be in my class. I'll come back and I'll catch up. And he's like, you don't have to though. Like, I'm giving you the option. You're not going to lose your contract. You were in a bad way. Like, my temperature actually got up to like 103.7. Like, I was in a bad
right there. You're starting to cook.
Yeah, I'm starting to cook. So he gave me that option, and I said, I want to come back. And I remember him standing up, and again, he hit me on the bottom of my foot, and he said, when you come back, you're going to be the the platoon guide. You're going to be the guy who's in charge. And I went back like a day or two later. I went back, and now he's back to drill sergeant mode. He's jumping in everybody's chili and push-ups. But I remember doing push-ups, like knocking, just blasting them out, and standing up at position of tension, and him walking by, and right behind my ear, he says to me, welcome back. And he said something that was really inspiring to me. You know what I mean? And then he kept just walking around looking at people. And I did. I was the honor grad of my basic training class, and at the end of it, I don't know, after a 20-year military career and being blown up and all of the stuff that I've gone through, like drill sergeant, I couldn't tell you another one of those drill sergeants, but drill sergeant Shavir sticks in my head.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, after all that, I go to airborne school, and then I go to RIP, the Ranger Indoctrination Program, which is, it's called RASP now, and I don't know the first thing about it, to be quite honest with you. I don't know the first thing about it right now, so I don't want to misspeak. But when I went through RIP, and it's one of those things, back when I went through, it was much harder. I'm telling you, when I went through, it was brutal, man. It was an absolute beatdown. And Big Army back then, man, Big Army didn't have berets. You saw berets on a couple of different people. In the Army, you saw green berets on the Special Forces guys. You saw the maroon berets when you got out of airborne school. Like, I had a maroon beret, and I thought I was just
the shit.
Yeah, I thought I was the bee's knees. And then on Fort Benning, you'd see these cats walking around with these black berets, and it looked like their damn uniforms were spray painted on. Like, they were just ripped. And I get to RIP, and I see these dudes walking around with these black berets and their sleeves rolled up and tattoos and just crushing things. And I was like, okay, this is it, man. This is where I'm going to shine. And I did. I mean, I running, the marching, all of that. The one thing I didn't do is I didn't know the Ranger Creed. So I was like staying up at night trying to remember that Ranger Creed and this, that, and the other. But yeah, RIP was a beatdown, and it was a gut check. And that's when you decided, and that's when they decided if you had what it took to be where you wanted to go and where they were at.
You can get cut from RIP, right? If you're like a performance drop.
Yeah, you can get you can. There was more people that rang the bell, figuratively than you can imagine. Like, just woke up in the middle of the night and were like, nope, this bullshit is not for me. Like, I'll just go be needs in the Army or whatever. You don't make times, and you may get rolled, you may get pushed back. I mean, I don't know how it is now, but yeah, it's a gut check, man. And it's like I said, it's them figuring out if you deserve to go where you want to and where they're standing. Mm-hmm. That's it. And, fortunately for me, I was green lighted, and I got through RIP. It was, to be quite honest with you, it was like, it really wasn't that difficult for me. It just really was not. And then I get my orders, and I go to 175 Savannah, Georgia. And
was that like a prep course for Ranger? Like
no, it's the Ranger Indoctrination Program, or RASP, what it is now. But back in the day, RIP, it was a gut check to see if you had what it took to get
into the regiment.
Yeah, because once you get in the regiment, man, it doesn't stop. Right. And for me, at least for me, and I'll speak only for me, is that when I went through RIP, I figured, hey, look, this is the hard part. I'm done. The hard part isn't getting in. The hard part's staying in. The hard part's staying at the regiment. Once you walk in the gate, so to speak, every day you're fighting not to get pushed out the gate. And it's not they're trying to get you out, but I mean, you're looking at, this is just the best. This is a bunch of alphas. And this is a bunch of people that, they're not going out on a Saturday night when they have to be up early on a Sunday. They're, it's discipline on top of discipline on top of discipline is what it is. And I get to Savannah, and I'm with 175, and again, it's my own being naive and not understanding, but I get to the regiment and I think it's like, okay, here I am. You're lucky to have me. And that was not the case. The case was not, you're lucky to have John Welch. The case was, John Welch, you're lucky to be here. And from the pack clerks, the S1, all the way to the, first sergeant, platoon sergeant, to the E4s, as a private coming into the regiment, you're getting skull drug.
What rank were you? So you're like a E2 or E3?
I was a E3.
E3? Okay.
I was a private, and I was fair game for everybody. If I was fair. If you had a tab and you saw Private Welch was pushing dirt. I probably crawled and pushed most of Savannah. Most of Savannah and Hunter Army Airfield into. I probably pushed every square inch of that damn place.
Now that's just something that they do.
That's rite of passage, man.
Just entertainment.
Yeah. That is just rite of passage. And then after they realized, and by they I mean from E4s up, they realize that they can't break you. Like you're there. Then they start to ease off those brakes a little bit. They start to, now it's do 50 push-ups and then come over here and I'm going to show you how to tie this knot, or do 50 push-ups and then come over here. We're going to go over an op order. It wasn't a constant, hey, do 50 push-ups and go crawl down the hall. It was do this and then come over here. And then
it wasn't just hazing, right? Just haze you and then, hey, see you later. I'll get you next time. Yeah.
No, it was at the beginning for a couple of days, week. It was like that. But then it got to, they knew that you're now part of the team. They got to get you trained up, get you mentally ready.
Yep.
For whatever comes down the pipe. And and I did a lot of training, but Glenn, again, I came into the military when there was no war, and there was a bunch of dudes that had been in the military that never had gone to a conflict. Now there was dudes that were in my battalion that were, Task Force Ranger in '93. And those were the dudes that were like, just, okay, like I want to be like them, but I don't want to be like them.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like
they're the rock stars, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They were just, And, so it was a lot of training, And, to be, at damn near 50 years old now, I sit back and I wish things would have gone a little bit different. I'm not saying I wish my career had taken any other different path, because I'm quite content with what I did. But I was done with the training. Now I wanted to go use everything that I had been trained to do. It was time to start putting it to work.
Right.
I was tired of going out to the range and shooting. I did it, but I was tired. And I'd gone to these schools, I'd gone to Ranger School. All of these little schools and stuff. I was like, okay, now I'm trained. Let's go fight. I was still a kid. I didn't understand how the world worked when it came to wars and conflicts and that kind of stuff. So when it came time for me to re-enlist, I was like, I needed to know, I wanted to know what it was like to get in the fight, so to speak. There's no wars going on, but what's the closest thing? I said, man, let's go to Korea. Now, leaving the regiment to go to Korea is unheard of. It is unheard of. And I had a lot of really good squad leaders saying to me, because they were punching out, they were getting out of the military. They were leaving the regiment. Right. And it was like, listen, if this is what you're going to do, go explore. The Army's a big place, go explore. Ain't nothing like the regiment, but go explore. maybe you want to go 18 series, you want to go, be a, special forces guy. I was like, yeah, maybe that's what I want to do. Maybe that's what I need to do.
Right.
And I reenlist to go to Korea, to the LRSD in Korea. And I knew that things were going on in Korea, that there was a truce and all this kind of stuff. And I read the book about Captain Boniface, and I was like, yeah, that's where I want to go. So I reenlisted, and I got to Korea. And now by this time, I'm a tabbed E4. All right.
What year was this, John?
96, 97, going to 97. So I'm a tabbed E4. And I get to the LRSD in Korea coming from the regiment. And I walked in those doors and I was a fucking rock star. Like legit, like, wait a minute, this dude's a E4, tabbed E4 coming to the LRSD in Korea. And he's from the regiment. Mm-hmm. So I brought all of the knowledge from the regiment to the LRSD. You know
now
what
what's LRSD?
A long range reconnaissance detachment.
Okay.
In Camp Hovey in Korea. I don't know. I couldn't tell you if it's there or where it's at now. As a matter of fact, you can't see it, but over in this corner is all LRSD stuff. But it was like, okay, now what? And we're gonna start walking these hills and looking for the North Koreans, because they're out there. And man, it didn't take long. There was a North Korean SOF guy, Special Operations Force guy, that came over in a one-man submersible. And it was actually, when we had talked about it before, I was thinking about it. It was actually on the front of the Army Time, the Stars and Stripes there in Korea. But he had come over and he was in his wetsuit. And I know it wasn't Chejudo. It was somewhere on the peninsula, but he had washed up. I mean, he had 8-ball hemorrhages in his eyes. He was dead as a doornail. And his one-man submersible flagged out with North Korea and had washed up. He had drowned and just washed up on shore. But wow. What that told us and told me at that time is like, they're probing.
Right.
This is real deal. This is it, man. Like, I'd gone to LRSLIC and the Light Reconnaissance course and the Malaysian tracking school. I'd gone to all of these different schools, and now it's like, now I'm going to get to use this. Now I'm going to get to track you up in those mountains. And needless to say, I didn't track many people up in the mountains, but it was where I found, I knew that the military was my calling, but I didn't know exactly what my job was. I didn't know what it was. You have to understand, man, the first airplane that I ever got into, was the very first airplane that I jumped out of. All right. So there was a lot of firsts for me. The first gun that I ever picked up was the first gun that I picked up in basic training. So I knew I loved the Army now, and I knew that this is where I wanted to go. But like, now, what do I want to do? I want to be a medic. What do I want to do? And the offer came to me in Korea to go to sniper school. And I was like, well, yeah, like I'll
when do I leave?
Yeah. And what it was there was an MTT, a mobile training team that had come over, and it was at, I want to say it was Camp Casey or something like that. And I had knocked it out of the park. I learned the military way, and then I go to Fort Benning and I go through sniper school. And you'd mentioned earlier, you put the charcoal on your face and you're doing all the Army stuff when you're a kid. I made a ghillie suit, and I was doing what's called the ghillie wash. And I'm going through this long ass trench in this Georgia red clay. And it was that second that I knew, like, this, like what I'm doing right now, I'm cold. I'm wringing ass wet. I've got this ghillie suit on. I've got spiders on me. I've got shit in my mouth. But this is it. This is what I want to do. Like, I want to do this. And I remember graduating that class and graduating sniper school and being able to say that I was a Bravo 4, that I was an Army sniper. Like, I was ecstatic. Like, I got on the airplane and I was so proud, because that I knew now what my calling was.
Now, did you did sniper school in Korea, or you went back?
No, I did. It was called an MTT, mobile training team, had come to Korea, and it was, I guess, for DDMs, for marksmen, to become a what is it, a designated defensive marksman or whatever. And I'd gone through that, and I was like, yeah, like this is it, man. Like these dudes were snipers from Fort Benning, and they were teaching ballistics and high angle shooting and this, that, and the other. Yes, man, like this is it. Because in my feeble little mind, all snipers were with the Tom Berenger, look through, one shot, 2 kill type. That was it. It wasn't. I didn't know anything about the stalking. I didn't know anything about lift and all that. But I did. I found out, and once I got my identifier, I read. There was nothing that I didn't read. I mean, I was reading Hathcock books, John Plaster book. I mean, I was reading it all, and I knew that's what I wanted to do, and that's ultimately what I ended up doing.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, man. I said it to you before, but I thank you for all that training you gave us for that. Just those few days when I was working in Louisiana, because you got those guys locked on. And I don't know if I ever sent that to you. Those guys swept that competition.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. After we had talked last week, I found a picture. It was a picture of Anderson, I believe.
Yeah. Yep.
Anderson and
Soche. Yep.
Soche. So
Soche.
yeah, it was me, Soche, Anderson, and you. Somebody had taken the picture of when I came out there and helped train those guys. And then 2017, I'm in Gulf Shores, Alabama, playing golf, and I go into an IHOP, and I turn and look to the right, and there's Soche sitting right there eating.
No kidding. No kidding. That's funny.
Yeah, it was. I mean, like, what are the odds, man?
Right. All right.
But yeah, man, it was. That's what I decided to do, and I went to every single thing that you could think of. If it pertained to shooting, or if it pertained to the art of, I was there, man, civilian or otherwise.
So what happened after? So Korea, how long were you there?
18 months. I actually extended to stay. I extended to stay, and stayed, and then came back and stood up at 10th Mountain, and I was in New York, and then it's like they got a big bag of us all, and well, let me back up. So I get up there and I go to Mountain Leaders course, MLOC, and I go through some more schools. I mean, just every school you can think of that the military had to offer. It seemed like I was in the right place at the right time, and I had the people that believed in me that, hey, listen, if we send this guy, he's going to go and he's going to make it.
Make it, yeah, good.
And I did, and I went through a bunch of more schools up there, and yeah, it was I loved it. And then I up there, I re-enlisted, and I went to Fort Carson, Colorado. And then that's, no, let me back up. From there, the towers fall out.
Yes.
I was in a scout platoon. You there?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was in a scout platoon with the 10th Mountain, and we got attached to an ODA, and it was, I think we were probably more for the ass and trash for the ODA, but we actually did some really good work when we went in the mountain, when we went to Afghanistan. And yeah, it was, I saw what the SF guys were doing, and I was like, yeah, that's super cool. They get to look real cool, but I like this gig. I like this whole me and this dude up in those rocks searching for all the bad guys, us two. And I have a radio, and I have a high-powered rifle, and my job is to observe and report. And sometimes they're going to tell me, yeah, take the shot, and I'm going to put a bullet in you. And we did that. We did that a lot. And again, man, it goes back to you have those moments, and you have those people that kind of, this is where I'm supposed to be. And his name is Master Sergeant Strickland. He was an 18 Bravo on the ODA that we got attached to. And I had many conversations with him. He was actually from South Florida, And I say South Florida, he's from Jacksonville. And so we had the Florida thing in common. And so we were always talking, and he was calling me John, you know, but I was still calling him Sergeant Strickland.
Right.
But he probably told me to call him Donald at some point in time. And it was a lot of NCOPD when we weren't working. It was a lot of non-commissioned officer professional development. I mean, he was like, if you want to take this route, these are the steps you need to take. If you want to go this route, my suggestion are, this is the steps you need to take. He was after 9/11, I think he decided that that's where he needed to be. So that's what he did. You see my dog back here?
Yeah, I see him. In jail back there, I see.
Yeah, he's got an opening. He's coming
Okay.
out. So this is my man cave / doghouse.
Nice.
So I learned a lot in the short amount of time that we were over there from the guys on these ODAs on how to do things. Like I never had the aspiration of becoming a Green Beret. I didn't want to go that route. You know, I don't know why, I just never did. But I loved pulling the knowledge from those guys. You know what I mean? I loved pulling the knowledge of what they knew. And then when I was
applied to what you're doing. Yeah.
Exactly. When I was, you know, sent out with, you know, a couple of the Bravos, and we were doing, you know, route observations, and I was watching how they did stuff, and it was like you mentioned, man, I was just a sponge, and I was pulling from these dudes, and it was a really, really good learning experience.
So you were like, so from the 10th mountain, were you augmented to like ODA?
Yeah, we were attached to
fill slots or something?
Yeah, well, I don't know if we were filling slots or if they just needed, if they needed us.
More support, maybe?
For support, but that support really just became, you know, your Bravo 4s, we're putting you to work with, you're coming with us. Right. And we did. And like I said, man, we did some work, and it was a good time. It was a good time. And I still talk to two of those guys still to this day.
So what year was this?
This was 2001, going into, 2001, 2002. Mm-hmm. And then when I came back, I re-enlisted, and I went to Fort Carson. I went to Fort Carson, Colorado. I'd always wanted to go to Colorado. I'm a huge Nebraska Cornhusker football fan. And to tell you that I did not base my re-enlistment on Nebraska football would be an absolute fucking lie. I re-enlisted for Colorado so I could see Nebraska play Colorado in Boulder. Nice. So as ridiculous as that sounds, that's the schedule. And then shock and awe happened, man. I remember like it was yesterday. I was in my apartment, and it was coming down the pipe that this was going to happen, and then it happened, and then I go to work the next day, and it's like, hey man, we're loading the railhead, and we're getting the hell out of here. We're going to Iraq. I'm like, wait a minute, man. Like none of you cats here have a combat patch from Afghanistan. I got one. Like, what the hell you mean we're going to Iraq? I'm not going. Like, I don't want to go to fucking Iraq. Yeah. Well, I went to Iraq, man, and this is the thing. My military career right then, it was Iraq, Afghanistan, Iraq, Afghanistan, Iraq, Afghanistan. It was you were going on deployments after deployments after deployments. And I was with the Scouts again, and we did the initial push. We were supposed to go in from Turkey. They closed their ports to us. Third ID had a couple of days ahead of us going through Kuwait. Yep. And they were, we were going to come from the north. Fourth ID was coming from the north. Third ID from the south. And we ultimately couldn't. I believe 173rd jumped Mosul. They were in Mosul. We had to all of our equipment had to come back down south and come up through Kuwait. I tell you that to say that third ID, they took it on the chin, but they stirred up this hornet's nest. Right. And we were driving right through the hornet's nest, and it was brutal, man. And again, you have these people that are put in your life. That's why I'm a firm believer in there will come people in your life that they'll be almost like they were supposed to be there. And for me, it's a gentleman who I still talk to to this day. And Colonel Nate Sassen, he wrote a book called Fall of the Warrior King, or The Warrior King, or something like that. And he was lieutenant colonel. He was my battalion commander. I was one of his scout snipers. I was his senior scout sniper. Colonel Sassman, little history on him. Unbelievable man. He took the, I believe, 81 West Point football team to the Cherry Bowl, where he won. He was a starting quarterback, and then comes, I mean, just an all around stud. And a lot of people will shake their head. He's his 60 minutes interview, and some of the interviews that he's done, he's gotten some flack over. We've gotten some flack over some of the things, but we ruled with an iron fist. And
Why do you mean? Why do you think that? Taking flack about what though? What they did over there?
Yeah, what we did, like how we did. Like we ruled with an iron fist. If we were on our fob and we took mortar rounds, we took 3 mortar rounds, we were putting 30 on top of them. Our GSR picks up where those mortar rounds are coming from, the barrage of stuff, and then they're going to load up in these Bradleys and these tanks, and they're going to roll over to where it's at, and they're just going to blow everything to hell.
No, isn't that what we're supposed to do?
Well, yeah, I mean, but to some people, it was a little overkill. To me,
No such thing.
No such thing.
Not anymore. No.
I remember him telling me I would call back to the talk, and he was the guy who was responsible for us. Like, we took no orders from nobody except for Lieutenant Colonel Sassman and Major Darren Wright. And you're doing route overwatch on Tampa and Silver and Pluto and Irish and all of these roads. There's no need to call. If you see somebody doing some dirt, you put a bullet in. Yeah, check. Roger that. And we did. We did. And not to be gruesome and not to beat my chest, but you put a bullet in 2 dudes in less than 45 minutes, and you just let their bodies sit there, and then somebody comes over to pick up that same black bag that they were picking up and starts digging a hole. I'll just start stacking bodies. And we did.
Yeah.
We stacked them. And yeah, man, Colonel Sassman, just a beast. There's in his book, it even says it, but Iraqi parents, if the children were misbehaving, they would say to their kids, if you don't behave in the middle of the night, Mr. Sassman is going to come and get you. Like, that is the reputation that we had in that country. Like, in our battle space, if you came in there to play fuck, we're there. Let's do this. Let's put them on. And we did, man. God bless, we did.
What unit was that with? You're with?
1-8 infantry and the Sunni Triangle. 1-8 infantry and the Sunni Triangle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 1-8 infantry, Sunni Triangle, and our battle space was from Samara East to all along Tampa. And don't get me to line. I just know we were in Samara, and we did some work there.
Now you being I mean, I don't know much about this stuff, but you being a tabbed out Ranger, and now you're in the big Army, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you see Rangers and you're like, damn, man, would you regret that decision to? No?
I didn't regret it. I didn't regret leaving that part, because I was,
because you were doing what you wanted anyway.
I was doing what I wanted, and I was in a really specialized group. If I was big Army, if I was in the big Army and I was Sergeant Welch in big Army, then yeah, probably. But I was Sergeant Welch in a really close-knit group. It's super hard to explain.
You're in your own little scout sniper
we're
team.
in our own. We had our own hooch away from everybody. We ate. I mean, it was just different. It was just different. And maybe it's just because that's what the snipers were doing. I don't know, but that's what we did.
Right.
And we were always attached. we were always attached to a soft unit. Like there was not a time when it was coming close to the end of when I knew that it was getting time, my time in the military was coming to a halt. My mother and father had retired to Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. And 2004, I'd come home after a deployment. Now I had a total of, with the military and contracting, I had 14 deployments, Iraq, Afghanistan, Israel, Yemen. So but my mom and dad retired to Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, coastal Mississippi. Mm-hmm. And I came home and I was like, my mom and dad are getting up there in age, so I want to get close to them. So my next re-enlistment, I said, I want to go to Fort Polk. They're standing up the 10th Mountain Light Fighters at Fort Polk. I'll go there. I knew Kirk Johnson, now First Sergeant Johnson, was actually at 175, and now my new Sergeant Major at Fort Polk, Command Sergeant Major Christopher Greca, he was at 175. So basically what the 10th Mount at Fort Polk was a mini Ranger battalion. Like every single one of those dudes were tabbed. Every single one of those dudes were, at the regiment at some point in time, So I was going back to a place that I was comfortable with dudes that I was comfortable working with, and I knew they weren't going to get me in a scrape that was going to end up costing me my life.
Okay.
Yep. So my mom and dad retire. Hurricane Katrina comes. They lose everything in Hurricane Katrina, almost their lives. And I'm at Fort Polk. I end up getting married, and I deploy. All right. And this, this was 2000 and going. Let's see. I went back to Afghanistan with 10th Mountain out of Fort Polk 2 more times, then went to Iraq 1 more time, and then came home. And then in 2008, I go back to Iraq with the 10th Mountain out of Fort Polk. And 2008 was probably one of the worst years.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it was brutal. This flag right here was out of Cop Hope. It was the Mujahideen uprising in 2008 when El Sadr called for civil unrest for 31 days.
Right.
And it was like somebody had flipped a fucking light switch. And our cop at the time, our battle space was Sadr City. And we were inside Sadr City. I mean, we weren't inside Sadr City. Back that up. We were about 300 yards outside of Sadr City, Cop Hope, right along Route Silver that went right through Sadr City. And we were a civilian agency jump off point. There was just a few of us at this combat outpost. And what it was, you'd see these civilian agency guys come to this outpost, they go into the talk, they do their thing. You had a SEAL team that was there in 2008 in Sadr City that was stationed with us. And again, it goes to those conversations and those people, I've talked to the 18 Bravo weapons sergeant in Afghanistan about his techniques. Now I'm talking to this, SEAL Team 3 or SEAL Team 10, I don't know what SEAL Team, I think it was SEAL Team 3. These guys, these snipers, and you learn so much. It's a lot of just like cross-pollination of different things. And thank God, man, thank God, because when that shit happened and I got up on that roof in Sadr City, man, it was game on. It was so. Just a really quick story. So my mom and dad get a phone call from a lieutenant's wife. I won't say his name because he may see this. This lieutenant's wife calls my mom and dad. All right. And because my mom and dad were on my next of kin sheet. Right.
Right.
And they calls my mom and dad and says, John's unit has come under heavy attack. There are a lot of casualties, and we think that John is one of them. Now, a couple things about that. That's a rookie fucking move, first off, for an FRG. for anybody not knowing the facts. But my mom and dad spent 24 hours in a Presbyterian church. We're Southern Baptist. They just found a church and went and they stayed in the church praying because they thought. Now I was in a hellacious firefight. I mean, I was in one of those kind of firefights, Glenn, that you duck down behind a wall and fucking pieces of the wall are flying off. You know, I mean, like there was shit coming in and it was brutal. And you know, the crazy thing was, is I can tell you exactly what I was wearing. I was wearing a Boston Red Sox hat and a Slayer t-shirt. and I was up on that rooftop and just you look through those optics on those, you know, I get asked like, how many times do you think you shot? Every time I look through the fucking reticle, I pulled the trigger, something got hit.
Something got hit, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're up there working, you know, and it's crazy because I'm thinking of my tempo and how I'm shooting, and I can remember vividly. I don't know who it was. I don't know. I won't presume to know who it was, but whoever the sniper was on that roof from that SEAL team was up there, and he was on a different level. I mean, he was putting in fucking work out there, son. And you didn't want to get up. You didn't want to get on the roof because if there's indirect fire, the last place you want to be is on a rooftop, you know. But from the rooftop, you had a really good vantage point into Solder City, and you know, we were able to engage targets from up there with, you know, the M107 with the 50 cal or the 700 Remington, or whatever system you were carrying up there, whatever SWS you had up there, you were engaging targets with it. But you know, I come home and my mom and dad tell me that story. My mom still to this day will start crying. But for 30 days, man, everything went black. There was no computer, there was no phone, there was nothing. And I was sitting up there and I was engaging and we're shooting, and this is May 15th, and my CO yells my name, and I look at him and he has this satellite phone in his hand. And long short, my wife had just given birth to Jinx, and you know my daughter. She actually calls you. And I talked to at the time, my mother-in-law. She said, "You have a beautiful baby girl." And my dad got on the phone, and I could hear my mother-in-law like say something. She started crying, and my mom started crying. And my dad heard all the explosions and the yelling and this and the other. And he said, "You have you got a little girl." And I said, "Does she have 10 fingers and 10 toes? And she's healthy?" And he said, "Yeah." And he says to me, "Sounds like you're busy over there, son." And I was like, "Yes, sir, Dad, I gotta go." And he said, "Keep your powder dry, keep your head down." And I was like, "Yes, sir." And I hung up the phone. And I remember getting in the corner and crouching down and just having that second to myself and saying, okay, now there's somebody else out there who depends on you.
Right. Yep.
You got to start, you got to come off that gas a little bit. You got to stop there taking volunteers to go over with this unit to, Afghanistan. It was like that quick. You just kind of decide that you got to do something different. And to put a period on that, my daughter's born. I come back from that deployment. I have a couple more deployments after that, but nothing. Some firefights here and there, some route clearance issues and whatnot, but nothing crazy. And then you get to the 20-year mark, and it's like, where did all that time go?
Yeah, time to go. Yeah. Where
did all of that time go? Like, and that's when the struggle starts, man. That's when you're not as in good a shape as you think you are, because you're in the best physical shape that you've probably ever been in, but mentally,
no, you checked out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially after all that. Just a little bit of combat I had. All the combat you had, just like, yeah, you definitely checked out.
Yeah.
Reality's a little bit altered after all that.
Yeah. You go from hunting terrorists and shooting things and hearing screams to I went to selling bad boy lawnmowers. You know what I mean? Like in Ball, Louisiana. And it was like, that was that was brutal. That was a hard road, man. That was a hard road. And then, then my family starts to see who I am, now. And I don't think they liked what they saw. I was an angry dude, man. I was fighting. I took a job as a bouncer and just so from 9 o'clock at night to 4 o'clock in the morning, that time frame, like your heart's going 1,000 miles an hour because it's drunk people in Louisiana, and they want to.
Oh, they want to fight. Oh yeah,
fight quick. Well, yeah. I'm that guy, man. If that's what you want to do, if that's what you want to do, I'm all about that life. So, and I don't say that to talk tough, but you had to have an outlet,
right?
You know what I mean? And then it came, I get the phone call, hey man, thought about contracting, think about going overseas again. I'm like, I think about it like 26 hours out of the day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about it all day plus 2.
Right.
And long story, I go to Triple Canopy and become a DDM with Triple Canopy, and I do a couple of whips contracts with them, and then I go to Academy and I go to the XPG program, and I do 3 years on the XPG program, and it was good. It was great money, and it was a lot of lot of travel. And now you're in the big leagues now. You're and Big Brother's not behind you anymore. You don't have Big Army behind you anymore.
Yeah, you're by yourself. Yeah.
By yourself, And then when you go to the XPG, and that was a whips contract. And then I went to the XPG program with Academy, which is formerly Blackwater, and I'm working at an agency site. And
And what's XBG? What's that?
So plainclothes agency site.
Okay.
You're the security at these plainclothes agency sites, and it's different than the WPS program by a lot. And I don't know. It was great, and I made a lot of money, and I got to meet a lot of really cool people, and I got a bunch of passports with a bunch of cool stamps in it. But at some point in time, your body and your mind just say enough. You're done.
Right.
You gotta stop. And I did. And I punched out of that and went back to school.
What are you doing now?
I just got my PhD. I actually got my PhD here in August. Got a PhD in criminal justice with an emphasis on Homeland Security.
I gotta call you doctor now?
Well, I've tried to get everybody that I know to call me doctor, and not a damn person will do it.
I'll call you doctor. I'm gonna call you doctor from now on.
They'll call me doc. They'll call me all kinds of names, but it won't ever be doctor. But no, I got a master's in emergency management, a doctorate in criminal justice. My undergrad's in criminal justice, and I work for GOSEF right now, the Governor's Office for Emergency Preparedness and Homeland Security.
Nice. What do you do with them now?
All the emergency preparedness for hospitals, every hospital in the state of Louisiana.
Busy?
This time
That
of
kind of
year,
work? Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's right. Because it's hurricane season.
hurricane season. Yeah.
Right.
If a hospital gets evacuated, it's because of us.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I do, I still shoot. I do some concealed carry classes.
Yeah.
Hang out with the kids, man. Try to stay somewhat mobile and young. Injuries after injuries. Getting blown up, shoulder surgeries, back surgeries. My memory's not like it used to be. I lose my keys. It seems like every damn day. But yeah, just trying to mosey along.
Remember, you're only 47, so wait till you hit 50. And,
yeah, man,
it starts to go a little bit quicker.
But you say that, but you strap a ruck to your back and walk like thousands of miles. I think you're doing just fine.
I have to.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, man. It's 100 degrees outside, and I'll be outside planting flowers.
Right.
I go in the garage, and my wife actually asked me a couple days ago, she's like, are you rearranging the garage again? And it's hard to explain why I'm doing it, but yeah, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I'm rearranging it, and I'm trying to keep this mind of mine occupied. You know,
That's a good thing.
yeah, I'm trying to keep
Yeah.
certain doors closed,
Mhm.
and you can only do that if you're thinking about other things.
So you think you're like the resiliency you learned through all those schools and everything you've gone through, even when you're a kid, training up for PJs, you think that definitely helped out throughout your whole life, huh?
I think
Since then?
physically it did, but physically, yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
But nobody sits you down and tells you about the dreams or the after or the sleeping 4 hours a night because you're in so much pain. Those are the things that they don't tell you about. You know what I mean? Like, you can't train for that.
Right.
You
Right.
can't, and yeah, I think the inside of my head, I have I'm not going to quit mentality. I just don't know how to do that. I don't know how to say I'm shutting the lights off. I don't know how to say I can't do it. That's a problem.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I can't do it is like my wife, there'll be like 4 or 5 things, and my wife will say, I'll do this. Or like I'll be doing something and I'm like knee deep in it. And I see her taking the trash out, and I'll go running across the house just to grab the trash to go take it out, because I can do it. And I have to keep telling myself I can do it.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, like that kind of happened to me. Geez, what was it now? Probably 2 or 3 months ago. We were doing this Go Ruck event in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We did a called the Go Ruck Tough. So it's a 12-hour event on a Friday night into Saturday. And then, I mean, this guy was, his name was Kadri Bellman. He's a Delta guy from Mogadishu. So older guy, you never realize it. This guy was hard as nails. And the funny thing is he tells us, he's like, hey, yeah, I just had hip surgery. And we're like, oh hell yeah. Like we're gonna walk like 2 miles. That's it. No. Oh no. We did like probably 15 to 18 miles, I think. And he just put it to us big time, and went in the Lake Michigan and froze my ass off. And I don't know what happened to me. And I mean, my back locked up, my hips locked up. I was a mess, just a mess. And in my head, I'm just like, oh, just keep going.
Right.
Get in my vehicle to go back to the hotel for a quick shower and something to eat. No, my back said, oh no, stupid. You're done.
Right.
You're done. You're not going back. And I mean, that just ate me alive.
Yeah, I have those moments where, and it's because of like I get these cramps because of my back, and like it's debilitating. Like it stops you dead in your tracks.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I know exactly what you're talking about, man. At some point in time, I'm gonna wisen up and I'm gonna say, okay, I can't do A, B, C, and D. I can do A, B, and C. I just can't do D anymore.
You'll step through that door though. You will.
I'll try. I will try.
You'll just go through slow, but you'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. You're right. I'll go through the door. I'll just have to go through it a little bit more gingerly. Sure.
All right. So what do you like? What kind of advice you got for some people out there if they're thinking about going the special ops route, Rangers, anything like that?
Well, I mean, it's be ready. I mean, like I can't tell you where I would be if I was not ready to get there. You know what I mean? Like, don't go watch Lone Survivor and say, I'm going to be a Navy SEAL. Don't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's your calling, man, then get yourself in the best possible shape to do it. It makes it a lot easier. It's never going to be easy, no matter how good of shape you're in. It's never going to be easy, because if it was easy, every swinging dick would be out there doing it, and it ain't. It ain't easy. And understand that the physical pain and the physical discomfort will come to an end. It'll all stop at some point in time. And then, lastly, I would say, you got to condition your mind, because that's something that a lot of people are not, they didn't do. And I'm one of those. I didn't, you train your mind and your body for everything in that 20-year span. But then what about the next journey?
Right.
So mental health, you gotta take care of that as well. Your physical health, yes. Your mental health, for sure.
Well, I think if you're physically fit, it definitely helps being.
Oh yeah.
It's going to help you mentally too.
Yeah, for sure. And I say this to my son before I send him out to school: be better than you were yesterday. Do something good today. Mm-hmm. If it's helping somebody with their tray, if it's whatever, just be better than you were yesterday. That's
good. Good advice.
And that's it, man. I'm at my best when conditions are at their worst. That's my that's kind of how I live my life. And a goal without a plan is just a wish. If you have a plan, if you have a goal and you have a plan to get there, you're good to go. But if you're just wishing, if you're just thinking it all is all going to come to me, don't.
No one's going to hand it out to you.
Nope, not in the military. Not now. Not back then, and not now.
No.
And I guess last thing I'll say was, man, I work with heroes. Simple as that. I work with a bunch of dudes that were just unbelievable. Some of them are still with us, some of them aren't. And they some of the best dudes ever, for sure.
Well, it's good talking to you again. Good
you
seeing
as well,
you.
man.
Hopefully we can run into each other when you head up this way, like we were talking about.
November, we'll be up that way.
Sounds good.
For sure. All right, brother. Well, look, I appreciate it. Stay in touch. You got my number.
Yeah.
And I love what you're doing here.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
All right,
Bye.
Bye, man.